I am Marcel Hudson, Chief Education Officer in the Ministry of Education. With me in studio today is Mr. Patrick Chinedu. He's the Deputy Chief Education Officer Technical, and we also have Dr. Ritish Tularam, who is the coordinator of the SCCP unit. Today we want to speak on the subject TVET on the move. We believe that education is dynamic, it is not static, and therefore TVET in particular is all about movements. You know, we speak of events as against movements. Events, they come and go, but a movement speaks to continuity. And so today we want to discuss technical and vocational education in Guyana and how we will actually move this type of education forward. And so we know that there are several reasons that would have been proffered in terms of the importance, the significance of technical and vocational education. One of them is promoting economic development. TVET basically is referred to as the engine of growth. Most societies are able to expand and to grow because of technical and vocational education. Another important reason for TVET, they say, it's expanding employment size. It is able to, through technical and vocational education, persons are able to be employed on a wider scale because TVET has many branches, many other disciplines that it touches. And therefore, for example, it's not just carpentry and masonry. We're talking about computer, being a computer analyst. We're talking about landscaping, engineering, a whole host of things. And so it actually allows for the expansion of employment. TVET also speaks of improving quality, not just persons in a particular job, but they work with efficiency. And so we speak about quality and efficiency. And finally, we are able to actually see our system develop, our system advance in terms of technical and vocational education. And basically why we say TVET on the move is because some people believe that this discipline it's an area for people who can't perform and for failures. And so we want to make it abundantly clear to the general populace and to those who are responsible for driving technical and vocational education of showing the significance and the importance of technical and vocational education. Also, parents, some parents feel that if the child wants to do technical drawing, the child wants to do plumbing or something, that my child, will turn out to be not to be somebody of no merit. And that is not so. And so I'm sure these gentlemen in the studio today will be able to tell us about some of the plans that they have, the plans for moving technical and vocational education forward. And so at this juncture, I would want to ask Mr. Chinedu, who is responsible overall for technical and vocational education in Guyana as the Deputy Chief Education Officer Technical, to tell us specifically, could speak to us from the point of view of the institutes, what the institutes are doing, and how, as the lead person in technical and vocational education in Guyana, how he intends to ensure that we see progress and movement, as we say. Mr. Chinedu.
Thanks so much, Dr. Hudson, Chief Education Officer. TVET institution, as you rightly mentioned, is on the move, and this is one of the ways that we can inform the public as to what is happening. At the Technical Institute, we should know that whatever we do is guided by socioeconomic development and needs of Guyana. We cannot do TVET in isolation of what is happening in the nation. We recognize that oil and gas is there. We have to embrace it, and we have been embracing it. We also recognize that there are other new sectors that are emerging. We recognize tourism and hospitality. We know, of course, agriculture has been our backbone in the country for years, and we cannot in any way do anything without improving that. So these three sectors of the economy, among others, are some of the areas that guide what we do in TVET institutions, so that we can do things as our requirement states, that we must produce persons for the world of work. We must give the employers, companies, commerce, and industry the manpower they need to ensure that the companies continue to move. Dr. Hudson referred to TVET as the engine of growth, because without the scale, without the manpower that can move the industry, the company, the country will not grow. So as we recognize these sectors, as Guyana economy changes, what we do also changes. Just even to bring to bear that, given what is happening to us now with COVID, we recognize that again we have to continue. We cannot stop because COVID is amongst us. I mean, it's with us here. So again, we have shifted what we do to bringing on board online teaching. Most of our institutions, they've started it. While it's something quite new to us, we're making some inroads, and I believe as time progresses, we're going to perfect whatever we do in the sector moving forward.
All right. I think you told we had a conversation recently, and you did say that there's a particular institute that is fully online. You want to tell us something about that?
The Government Technical Institute, even have COVID hit us. Even before that, they've been preparing. There were some lecturers that were doing online training before. But now, when COVID came, it was maybe an opportune time for all the institutions, all the lecturers to move on with that.
So, in other words, we are not allowing COVID to really beat us back in terms of how we want to move forward.
Of course not.
Dr. Tulram, you have been you're in charge of the TVET unit, the SCCP unit of the Ministry of Education, and your sector deals specifically with schools. And so, how do you intend to promote technical and vocational education in the school system? Because, like I said earlier in some opening remarks, some people see technical and vocational education as something for people who can't, for underachievers, and I personally believe it's a misconception because of my own experience with people who have come through that stream. But you tell us, the nation, how you perceive your unit and the role of your unit in impacting change, even in the mindset of parents.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hudson, Chief Education Officer, and our DCO Technical, Mr. Chinedu. Very, very pertinent question being raised by our CEO. And I think that is the whole nexus here why we're here with this, first television program or a sensitization program to ensure that the populace, the citizenry of this beautiful country, Guyana, have a very comprehensive understanding as to the importance and the need of TVET education as we scaffold this beautiful country, Guyana, to its developmental trajectory. But to get to the question that the CEO asked, I am responsible for the TVET unit, and one of the programs that is being implemented through that unit is the SCCP program. And for our audience, the SCCP program stands for the Secondary Competency Certificate Program. Initially, that was one of the programs under the Ministry of Education that would have been implemented to cater for the dropouts in our country. And over time, based on the magnitude and the scope and or the latitude of what is happening at the ministry, the TVET unit came into being. And one of the programs now that we're looking at is SCCP, and by extension, we have the responsibility for the CSEC monitoring, which is a Caribbean Secondary Examination unit, as well as the CVQ, which is the Caribbean Vocational Qualification. Now, the unit has a very clear envisioned plan, and the plan is that we ensure that every child within the secondary schools across the length and breadth of this beautiful country, Guyana, benefit from this SCCP certificate, which is a competency-based methodology or approach that is used for delivery in the classroom. And as a result of that, once the child would have completed that SCCP grade 9, he or she then moves on to the grade 10. And upon completing the grade 10, he or she moves on to the grade 11, which is CSEC. So the whole idea, the vision of this unit is to ensure that there is a smooth transition, CEO, of the students moving from the SCCP program onto the CSEC, and which will lead ultimately to the ministry's policy in ensuring that every child leaving the secondary school leaves with a CVQ qualification. So the unit now, with its extended mandate, is working ceremoniously, is working religiously in ensuring that we satisfy that requirement or that policy initiative from the ministry, in ensuring that every child leaving the secondary school benefits significantly from a skill certificate for the whole purpose or the sole purpose of being gainfully employed in the world of work, for upward mobility in terms of qualification, and by extension, to move beyond the shores of this country here to have a qualification that is accredited, for example, in Jamaica, in Trinidad, the standardization in terms of the qualification. So the unit over the years would have repositioned itself, if I can use that word, in ensuring that we satisfy that demand and that scope for technical education that is now on that developmental scope.
All right. Thanks for that. You mentioned the whole notion about the CVQ qualifications, and I could remember in many discussions I would have had with Mr. Chinedu, based upon the different levels. A child could actually go to Jamaica, Barbados, even though you may have been qualified, you may have attained CVQ at a certain level. The child could actually, or the individual could actually access jobs outside of Guyana, because, with CARICOM, we talk about free movement. And so the importance of technical and vocational education is that it contributes to free movement, where a person could actually earn not only within their own country, but outside of the country. So I don't know which one of you would want to tell us about the different levels, level 1, level 2, and what are some of the implications? Maybe Mr. Chinji.
Yeah, Mr. Chinji,
let me bring this to you. Dr. Hudson, Guyana, we've actually moved away from what we do as Guyanese only. Now, anything we do in any of our TVET institutions, in our secondary schools, are now regionally based. They are following regionally accepted and approved standard by CANTA, which is the Caribbean Association of National Training Authorities. By extension, we have the local representative, which is the Council for TVET, that pronounce on any program we do here that relates to TVET. For the secondary school system, CXC is given the mandate to ensure that CVQ is implemented or regulated, as well as certified, whoever want to get that CVQ. So the question, therefore, is Guyana has joined other CARICOM countries to make sure that certificate we issue are not just only for Guyanese or recognized locally, unlike what we used to do before. So just as CXC will give student CSEC, or after writing the CSEC, they will give that CSEC certificate. If you do a CVQ in our secondary school, just as Dr. Brown we just mentioned, you can complete your ACCPR grade 9, move on to grade 10 to do CVQ, and then go on to grade 11 to complete your CSEC. That CVQ you have, you can use it to do what you want to do, because it's a skill certificate. It's occupational based. It gives you the knowledge, skill, and the behavior to work in a particular field. You can use that to get a job here in Guyana or outside of Guyana, at least in every CARICOM country. We know as well that persons will have used it in Canada, US to get a job or get employment, or even to continue their studies. Now, the TVET institutions have moved up to offering level 2 and as well as level 3. The main framework that the Ministry of Education would have adopted is a case where the CVQ level 1 will be done at the secondary school level, while the level 2 and 3 will then take it through the technical institutes. So that there is that progression. Even we are hoping that pretty soon the University of Guyana will join us to take it to level 4, even level 5, because TVET as we know it, as I think Dr. Laurent would have mentioned it, or you mentioned it, it's not as person used to think before, that compare academics and skill. The fact is that if you're not an academia, you might not make it in TVET. Let me just say that one. But however, in TVET, we accept anybody. It doesn't matter your academic qualification. You can go from CVQ level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to a doctorate program if you want.
But I don't believe there could be any separation. I am one of the persons, and I've been a strong convert over the years, where I actually used to see TVET as a discipline apart from academic, but I believe it's all inclusive when we talk about you basically whatever you need to know to do well in mathematics and English, the same kind of thing is needed even in technical and vocational education. It just I think it has to do basically with the level of which you are operating at, or what level you want to get at. So it's not something for, as people will say, it's for people who can't read and write, and people who don't know what they're doing. And so that is a misconception. What I want to know from you, Dr. Turam, what your unit will do or can do to change that perception in the minds of parents, in the minds of those who believe that this technical and vocational education training, it's for people who are not, some people use the term not academically inclined, again, which I believe is a great misconception. Because for me, you have to be academically inclined to do technical and vocational education.
Absolutely.
I don't know a man could walk into something and has no clue what he's about, right? So what you will be doing or can do to change that kind of perception, because it needs to be changed.
Absolutely, Dr. Hudson. And, I am very much optimistic that with this force engagement we're having here to let the populace understand or to change the mindset of what is the existing perception out there as it relates to TVET education, I believe that more of the sensitization, more of PR, more of publicizing information, because in my respectful view, I feel that we are not, probably as an individual or as a unit, we are not doing sufficiently that will clear that negative stigmatization that is attached to the minds of our parents and educators, and by extension, stakeholders out there. And I respectfully submit that once we can get out there and meet with the stakeholders, meet with the communities, try to have more of information in the form of pamphlets, getting on the Facebook, setting up of a web page, or trying to design and or develop quarterly digest, for example, and try to send out the information, the success stories that would have happened over the years. For example, we can take Parika Salem Secondary School, or Buxton PIC, or BV PIC, or one of those schools that would have done significantly well over the years, and use those as information selling to let the populace know that, listen, these are children who are coming from a catchment, and if these people can be gainfully employed and they can have a certificate and they can move on from one level to another, then what is stopping us or our children to get ourselves involved? So I would say to you, Dr. Hudson, that I believe more of this kind of sensitization and meeting more out there, using the hierarchical structure of the ministry and getting out there to the regions and be there in these sessions and PTAs and try to sell this whole TVET new paradigm of education, so that we can understand, well, listen, this is not this orthodox or traditional way that we used to be doing TVET. It has significantly evolved over time. And as a result, I believe in another 5 to 10 years, if possible, lesser than that, we can see a significant change in the whole mindset of TVET education.
You're talking about success stories, and well, I've shared this with you gentlemen already. As a doctoral student, I mean, the person who actually supervised me and saw me to the end is someone steeped in technical and vocational education.
Right.
And, it took me a couple of years, because I knew the individual, but it took me a couple of years before I actually recognized this was the individual's training, because Dr. Thompson operated out of the Faculty of Education, and so he was into education, and so I never thought that he was a technical and vocational person until all the time I thought he was just someone in the education faculty, field. And so there are these people who came through that stream. And they're doing their things quietly, and because people don't know, they think that this field is probably it's a field for people who can't achieve. And I will not. You notice I've been keeping that line because I want to get it over very clearly to persons that if Guyana is going to develop, if Guyana is going to go through this transformational phase that we seek, technical and vocational education has to play a key and critical role in the transformation process. We look at those countries like the United States of America. We like to call US United States of America because it's everybody could identify with the US. Then we have France, we have Germany, Italy, and when we look at those countries, China, and that's a big one, And these countries over the years, look at Singapore. Singapore, in terms when they got their independence, they were nowhere on the map. In Guyana, I know we have an issue with finding the personnel to teach, to deliver. And maybe that's why we have the difficulty in really moving TVET forward because of persons. So we want to encourage persons to come into the stream. Mr. Chinedu, you could recall that we had a plan where we were able to get persons to teach, to join the Civil College of Education so they could be trained. Of course, they could be trained in several areas, but pedagogy is also a critical part in the whole process. And so you want to tell us what is happening at CPC in terms of teacher training and how teachers could actually, and why teachers should seek to be trained in the discipline too?
UNESCO and ILO would have told us that 80% of jobs created in the world since 2002 are TVET related. Mm-hmm. You started by stating the economic benefit of TVET, how it has helped these countries move up. Most of the countries mentioned is TVET that would have propelled them where they are today.
Right.
So the benefit of TVET, we cannot underestimate it. Yes, we recognize that our teaching force in the system, everybody asks us, where do we have the teachers? We recognize that concern, and we've, since 2015, addressed it through starting 2 programs at the CPC. One is for persons that have the skill, have the knowledge, the qualification to maybe teach independently, as we call it. That means somebody might have a qualification at, let's say, the technician level. You can work by yourself. You can teach by yourself. So all you need to do is go to CPC and get a pedagogical qualification to be a trained teacher in TVET in Guyana. Most of our TVET institution staff and lecturers have gone through that route. And today they are certified trained teachers in TVET. And secondly, for those that probably don't have the technician certificate, they can join the CPC ADE program. Note as well that 1-year program is an associate degree certificate you will get. So currently the ministry has 2 pathways you can become a trained teacher.
I was just going to tell us about this career pathway thing.
Right, yeah. So you can become a trained teacher in Guyana, either that 1 year or the 2-year program at the CPC. Anyone that meets your qualification, you can. So indeed, we've been using that program to get person trained. The question, therefore, is the person that are willing to be trained. Again, what makes it even better now is that CPC would have gone online, to do their programs through online platforms. So that might bring more and more persons that are out there that are willing to be trained to join the system.
What advice will you give or can you give to those persons who may not have been able to complete school, but right about now, and any of you could jump in, right about now, what advice you would give? Somebody might be watching this program, they might be saying, I want to finish school. I want to I want to be trained. I want to change my life's course. I want to be on a developmental path. And they're watching this program. What advice you will give to such person? It might be a young, very young person.
Now, we recognize that we are operating in a time that is not, it's very unprecedented comparative to what we were operating before. And as a result of that, we would have recognized in the system that because of probably accessibility, students have fallen through the cracks altogether. Now, based on the question that the CEO would have asked, now I can say this publicly, that the TVET unit, Ministry of Education, that I am having the responsibility of, we are ready as of this afternoon or tomorrow to have students to visit our office. And we have the offices, we have technical offices there respectively for the home economics, the agricultural science, the visual arts, the industrial technology. We have technical officers who are ready to provide that guidance and support to these students who would have probably during the course of time didn't get to complete an education. And we can now work out a plan for them in terms of getting them into one of these institutes or probably some other program that can align them in terms of getting a skill certificate. The whole purpose or the idea here is that at the end of the day, this individual must be a recipient of a certificate that he or she can get out there, and he or she can apply for a level 1 program at any one of the institutes, or probably get into a job-related work altogether. The point, though, is that the unit is there, and I am ready to provide that guidance, to provide that support to those students or a group of students, so that we can provide or design a package for them in terms of what are the ways or the possible ways of them moving forward in ensuring that they leave or they get a qualification at the end of the day. And that is the way I will move forward in terms of giving that advice to the students out there. We know for a fact that there are many of them, and I want to make this public. The CEO is sitting here, the DCO Tech is here, and we are ready to work in that, collaborative, in that collegial manner, in ensuring that every child in this country, benefit from a skill training or a skill certificate.
Yeah, even to add to that, it's a case where I think the ministry have taken initiative to make sure that every secondary school student that probably because of this COVID maybe would have left secondary school. We've set an initiative where we are reaching to every child in our secondary school system. So if you're out there, maybe you haven't heard that the Ministry of Education is looking for you. We want you to come back.
Right.
We want you to complete your school. We want you to, even if you don't want to do the CSEC, come to us. We'll provide that venue for you to do your CSEC. We have issued applications wide for you to choose an area. We'll have you join a technical institute.
Right.
Now, note, wherever you are, we are going to find a way to accommodate you. All you need to do is just let us know, send your application to us. We'll discuss with you and find means to get you the path to get your certificate. Now, one thing with TVET we're offering right now, I need to let people know, is the case where Dr. Hudson said, we can take you from where you are. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you don't even need a qualification to start.
Exactly.
All you needed to do is to go to the institute or the unit. Yeah. We'll sit down with you. We know where you are. We do some little questioning and answering and tell you, look, this is what you might do. And this is probably where you can go and get your training and you move forward. And one good thing again about this is the case where, yes, it requires you to have basic English and mathematics knowledge. At the end of the day, all this thing you used to call exams, we are no longer having exams. It's about what you can do, you study, you learn, and more importantly, your attitude as well has a lot to play with it. So when you go to the institute, I used to tell my children when I was at GTI, you see, GTI is not a place where we want you to be reading. If you sit down with a good attitude, you will excel.
Well, I like to use this statement very often. The Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu, he said, a journey into 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Exactly.
And so I'm saying that to say that there might be lots of young men we might see on the streets.
Exactly.
We might see them, and some of them could actually get involved into
we open to them,
activities that are unacceptable and could actually lead to their downfall too. Mm-hmm. And so the idea of saying that that your life is over, we're saying in the Ministry of Education that there is hope.
That is, yes.
We're saying that, that you're not in a hopeless state. And you mentioned something, attitude. Mm-hmm. I remember, I don't even know if I should say this, but I remember when I left secondary school, I went to Central Medical Laboratory, and I worked there as a work-study student. And when that period was up, I had nowhere to go, so I stayed on without pay for 1 year. I woke up and I went to work with no salary. And then I could never forget Yatkumar Singh, who was then the chief medical technologist. In his own style, he said, the boy there, we got to look after the boy. The boy coming here every day, and nobody, without salary.
Right.
And I could remember even in that hardship, that hard time, I could remember, I don't even want to talk about the kind of food that I prepared. Boiled rice with melange.
Yes,
boiled rice with melange and throw oil in it so it could look like a cook-up, and put that in a bowl and went to the lab today. Look at today now. So the point I'm making is that a journey. So those young men who are seated in the street corners and they think that it's not a hopeless situation for them. But gentlemen, we press the time. Just closing remarks.
Yeah.
We start with you.
Yes, I just want to endorse the position that the CEO would have mentioned that in TVET there is always a way. And TVET, as we have recognized globally, and even in our local context, TVET education is now making that remarkable, that significant contribution in terms of our national and social development. I want to use this opportunity to implore to our youngsters out there, our children out there, irrespective of where you are and what you're doing, just look at this program, consider the positions that were shared here, and I believe that once you have listened to this carefully, you can make a significant, you can make a purposeful, you can make a meaningful contribution, not only to yourself, but to your society, your community, and by extension, to your country.
Yes, Dr. Sasson, you started by referencing the economic benefits TVET can have, not just to a nation, but to individuals. That's what TVET is for, skills development. We say in TVET, skill is wealth. Mm-hmm. Skill is wealth. That is our motto. And we have an intention to take TVET to every corner of Guyana, because we know if every Guyanese can acquire a skill, what a tremendous difference will make Guyana in terms of economic power.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your contribution on the topic TVET on the Move. Just to let the public know that this is the first installment of a series of installments that will be forthcoming on technical and vocational education on the move. Thank you.